Te Araroa is a 3,000 kilometre through hike in New Zealand, ranging from Cape Reinga to Bluff, on the country's North and South Islands. Officially opened in 2011, the trail consists of both old and new trails, linked together through various road networks, farmlands, and rivers. Whether you want to hike the full length of the trail all in one go, or take it in parts, this is a guide to help you plan your adventure. This information is based on my own experiences and research, and I encourage you to also do your own research before endeavouring on your TA adventure. More specific, intricate, and day-to-day information can be found in the annually updated trail notes on the Te Araroa Trust website. All relevant links to resources can be found below in the description of this video. Before you start Te Araroa, you should register yourself via the Te Araroa Trust website. This helps the Trust understand who walks the trail, and so that they can improve it over time. There is an optional donation to the Department of Conservation of 250 New Zealand dollars per island that you walk. This money goes into the maintenance of the trail. Check the trail status. There are sometimes closures on the trail that are indicated on the Te Araroa Trust website every September. These are helpful to be aware of before you start. When I did the trail, a few of the Northland forests were closed. This is mainly due to a disease called Kauri dieback, which is killing off the native and ancient Kauri trees in the area. Please make sure to use the cleaning stations properly when you come across them, as this helps keep our native forests healthy. The Te Araroa Trust follows the Leave No Trace policy. Please remember these simple steps while on trail. They help contribute to a greater hiking experience for all current and future hikers. Te Araroa also has a trail pledge that summarises all of the values that the Te Araroa Trust holds in regards to people setting forth on this adventure. Te Araroa, or the Long Pathway, winds through 10 regions of New Zealand. The North Island of New Zealand holds the majority of the country's population. Over 75% of people in New Zealand live here. Because of this fact, the island also boasts more cities and towns than the South Island. You will find that you come across more towns on your route in the north, and therefore more people, food choices, and activities. The South Island of New Zealand holds less people, and therefore less towns and cities. This in turn accentuates the South Island's remote and rugged character. This also adds good variety to the full trail experience, and makes you appreciate each island for its unique qualities. Here is a brief summary of each region. Starting with a longer than usual stroll on the beach, you make your way through muddy and hilly forests. Later, braving a bit of road walking and passing some quaint townships, you make your way to the stunning East Coast beaches. With a large city in sight, you will walk through the last of the green farmland north of the city, before heading across the Auckland Harbour on the Devonport Ferry. Walking through New Zealand's largest city might be a weird feeling, but I suggest taking advantage of all the food options you have available to you. Leaving South Auckland and headed into the mighty Waikato, you will find yourself never too far from a highway or town. Lots of cows, farmland, and some road walking will lead you through to New Zealand's 4th largest city and my hometown, Hamilton. From here, you are back into the countryside, summiting Mount Pirongia and heading further down the North Island's green landscape and into the next region. More farmland, road walking, forest, and mud will bring you to the Tongariro Crossing, New Zealand's most popular hike. Be prepared to see at least a few other people around. You will then make your way to the beginning of the Wanganui River. A few days of epic canoeing goodness later, and you will find yourself in Wanganui, a coastal town on the lower west coast of the North Island. You may feel some fatigue while getting your walking pace back after sitting in a canoe for the past several days. With more road walking on the cards, as well as passing through some classic New Zealand towns like Bulls and Fielding, you will eventually find yourself in another city, Palmerston North. Moving on past Palmy through more forest and farmland and backroads, you will face the Tararuas, the first mountain range on the southbound adventure of Te Araroa, and a prelude to the South Island landscape. Be prepared for mud, wind, and a beautifully rugged terrain. Crossing the Cook Strait from Wellington to Picton on the ferry, you will then head on a short water taxi ride to Ship Cove, the official start of the South Island Te Araroa route. First experiencing the wonderful Queen Charlotte track, you are in for a nice and easy start on the South Island. After what is hopefully a relaxing few days walking through the sounds of Marlborough, you will then come up against the Richmond Range, the longest stretch without seeing civilization on the trail, an arduous multi-day section that requires plenty of food. Then, onto Nelson Lakes National Park, another multi-day section, including my personal favourite views of the trail, featuring the clearest lake in the world and the epic Waio Pass, a true alpine wonderland. Aotearoa's biggest region will take you through many dry and arid landscapes, with many winding rivers and classic New Zealand townships and views. Hanmer Springs, Arthur's Pass, Lake Tekapo, and views of Mount Cook, New Zealand's tallest mountain, are all included in this incredible section of trail. Both the Rakaia and Rangitata rivers are also in this section, and it is strongly suggested that you hitchhike or organise a ride around these rivers, as they can be treacherous. I myself got a hitch around relatively easily and stopped by a couple towns along the way. Iconic mountain towns such as Lake Hawea, Wanaka, Arrowtown, and Queenstown are all included in this section of once again dry, river-dense trail. Enjoy these beautiful tourist hotspots and luxuries before the final section. Leaving Queenstown and passing through the small town of Glenorchy, you will start at the beginning of the Greenstone Track. This final section of Te Araroa will show you many dense beach forests, bogs, mountain ranges, and of course more gorgeous lakes and rivers. Coming to the end of an epic journey, you will be greeted once again with another beach and some more much-loved road walking before reaching the end of Te Araroa. I recommend hiking Te Araroa in the warmer months of New Zealand. Planning your hike around mid-September to mid-March will give you the best chance of experiencing the long summer days on the trail, providing long-lasting daylight, higher temperatures, and good vibes. The average time to hike Te Araroa is between 3 and 6 months. It took me a total of 4.5 months, including my rest days. That's an average of walking 28 kilometers per day, on the days that I actually spent walking. I started my hike on November 1st, 2020, and finished on March 14th, 2021. If this is your first through hike, you will be tested and you will find your pace and your own abilities while on trail. For example, I planned to walk 35 kilometers each day before I started, but soon realized that this was not realistic for me. Partly because my body needed to adapt to the trail, and also because slowing down and appreciating each section became a priority. Most people walk the trail southbound, from north to south. This is also the direction that I recommend. Walking Sobo allows you to walk with the weather, as the warmth of summer works its way down the country. The north of New Zealand is closer to the equator, meaning you can start your hike earlier and catch the wave of warmth as early as mid-September. Then, by the time you reach the south in February or March, the warm weather will still be in full swing. Another aspect to note when choosing what direction to walk is the Wanganui River. This iconic section of trail sees you canoeing for several days down an incredible river engulfed by rich, native forest. The river flows from north to south. This is very convenient, especially if you do not want to miss out on this stunning piece of liquid trail. Walking northbound or south to north is possible and it is enjoyed by many people, but I've personally not experienced doing this, so I cannot speak to its benefits, downfalls, or logistics. However, I believe there is not a major difference between the two directions. You are still experiencing the trail in all its glory, and you should do whatever works best for you. Safety on Te Araroa is a priority. I used a personal locator beacon for the duration of my hike, and I would recommend that you use one as well. PLBs have the ability to log your location at different time intervals, read weather forecasts, and send for emergency help. Using satellites instead of cell reception, you can be assured that you are safer with one of these on you. There are multiple forms of navigation that you can use for Te Araroa. Maps, apps, and physical signposts are all valid forms of navigating your way through the trail. My preference is using apps. Specifically, I used Far Out's Te Araroa Trail Map. This gave me full insight into the trail in nice and easy to understand sections, as well as comments from other hikers and points that notify you where certain amenities are along the way. These apps are tools that you can refer to on a daily basis and that will provide the most value to you while navigating the trail. Paper maps can also be downloaded and printed from the Te Araroa Trust website if you want a more hands-on form of navigation. Temperatures on Te Araroa in the summer are generally mild. There will of course be some hot days and also some cold ones. You need to be prepared for both. The weather in New Zealand can be sporadic. However, the South Island is where you need to be more cautious. There was a random snowfall on the Richmond Range, as well as in Nelson Lakes National Park during the season that I hiked. While this did not last long, it does show you that you never know what the weather down here might throw at you. In general, summer temperatures in New Zealand hang around the low to high 20 degrees Celsius. However, it is important to remember that Aotearoa is an island nation, and with that can come extreme and highly unpredictable weather. I have broken down my expenses on Te Araroa into the following sections. Keep in mind, this is specific to me as an individual and my preferences. All expenses are approximate. This includes all of my essential hiking gear. My camera and editing gear are separate and can be viewed on my Lighter Pack website in the description. This includes all accommodation from my Te Araroa experience, paying for campsites, hostels, hotels, and donations to Trail Angels. This equals out to around 155 New Zealand dollars per week for my trail experience. I would sum this large expense up to the fact that I basically treated towns like a free-for-all buffet. There are several modes of transport that you can take throughout Te Araroa. Events like the Wanganui River, crossing the Cook Strait on the ferry from the north to the South Island, and the water taxi to Ship Cove made up the bulk of this cost in my experience. In total, my trail expenses were approximately 8,500 New Zealand dollars. I would sum it up to this: buy all of the gear that you will bring with you on Te Araroa, and then make sure you have at least 5,000 to 6,000 New Zealand dollars available to you before starting. Every person will have a different budget for different reasons, but this is a general estimate that I've found applies to most hikers on Te Araroa. Here is a list of my gear that I took on Te Araroa. I have also made a standalone video that covers all of the gear that I took with me on the trail. You can find a link to this video in the description. I usually carried about 3 to 5 days worth of food at a time, with that moving up to 5 to 7 on longer stretches in the South Island or on the Wanganui River. I resupplied at supermarkets and convenience stores along the way. In the North Island, there are many small and big towns that you pass through. This made resupplying quite easy, as there are plenty of supermarkets and stores to buy more food. In the South Island, it is quite the opposite. There are a few towns that you pass through at the start and at the end of the island, but for most of the island, it pays to plan ahead a bit. There are 3 main locations in the South Island where you can send yourself a resupply box: St Arnaud, Hanmer Springs or Boyle Village, and Arthur's Pass. Ideally, you should pack each resupply box with the amount of food that you expect to eat while hiking the following section of trail. For example, my first resupply box in St Arnaud was packed with about 5 days worth of food. I predicted that I would hike the Nelson Lakes National Park section in about that time. This was accurate, but I believe it would also pay to add an extra day of food and preparation, as you may take longer than expected or get held up due to weather. There are addresses and contact information that are updated in the Te Araroa trail notes every year to include or remove any potential locations to post these parcels. You can also buy a box of your choice at any local post shop to fit the suitable amount of food for your section. I bought and packaged all of the boxes at the end of the North Island route in the capital city of Wellington. Water is plentiful on Te Araroa. There are many streams, rivers and taps along the way, with the exception of some sections in the Richmond Range and 90 Mile Beach. Bringing a water filtration system with you on your hike is a good idea. My advice is that it is good to at least have a backup. When you are not too sure about the source you are taking water from, you'll be thankful that you have one on you. I used a Katadyn B-Free Tactical 1 litre, along with a 1 litre plastic bottle. You simply fill up the bladder and screw on the cap and drink. The advanced filter makes sure you aren't swallowing any diseases like Giardia and gives you a bit of peace of mind. Easy to use and worth having. Accommodation in the North Island section of Te Araroa is approximately 80% tent sites. The other 20% is hostels, hotels and backcountry huts. Accommodation in the South Island is almost the polar opposite, being about 80% backcountry huts of some kind, and then some form of camping and hostels or hotels. A backcountry hut pass enables you to access most service huts and campsites outside said huts in New Zealand. The Department of Conservation, or DOC, here in New Zealand, issues them and can be found and purchased on their website. Here is the Department of Conservation's Code of Conduct for their huts. Freedom camping is only allowed in specific areas around the country. It is mostly only permitted on DOC land, and this will usually be pointed out on a physical sign nearby, or you can look up the campsite you plan to stay at online before heading out. New Zealand is a bit more strict around freedom camping, and therefore it pays to check ahead of time exactly where you can camp freely. Apps like Far Out will usually have comments from other hikers on each campsite on whether or not it is free to camp there or not. In general, I would suggest trying to stick to the definite campsites and huts as much as possible, to avoid fines and getting into trouble. During the summer hiking season of 2020 and 2021, the huts and campsites were not too busy. There were less than a handful of times that a hut was full, and there was never a campsite that was fully booked. This is of course in part due to the decreased numbers of travellers and hikers in New Zealand due to the pandemic. For context, Te Araroa's busiest season was in 2019, where over 1,200 people started the thru hike. The New Zealand Great Walk season runs from September through to April, and may also affect how busy some parts of the trail are. Like some of the big trails in America, Te Araroa also has its fair share of trail angels. Trail angels are incredible people who provide assistance on the trail. Trail angels provide what could be a bit of food or a room to sleep in for the night, and are a most welcome service on the trail. A koha or donation is usually warranted in exchange for these services. Along Te Araroa, you will come across some trail angels in one way or another, and it is definitely worth paying them a visit. It adds to the beauty of the experience, and the connection and conversations that are waiting to happen aren't to be missed. There are several different key situations where you will need suitable transport on Te Araroa. The first is getting to the start of the trail to begin your hike. Whether you are hiking northbound or southbound, there are options to suit you. I was lucky enough to be dropped off by my friends in Cape Reinga. However, there are a plethora of bus lines and shuttles that can take you there as well. To get to Cape Reinga from Auckland, you can take a bus from Auckland to either Paihia or Kerikeri. From there, you will be able to take another bus or shuttle to Cape Reinga. If you are going northbound and starting from Bluff, you will need to catch a flight or bus to Invercargill, and then bus or shuttle to Bluff. From Opua in Northland, you have the option to either kayak to the next trailhead or cross the ferry to Russell, and then get a hitch or ride from a trail angel. In Nungaru, Northland, there is a quick boat ride to catch across the estuary, where you can also stay at a trail angel's wonderful property if you choose to do so. In Puhoi, Auckland, there is an optional kayak ride to the next trailhead. I would suggest this, as the alternative is a steep road walking section. When you get into Auckland City, you need to take the Devonport ferry to the CBD of Auckland to continue en route. The next form of transport is the Wanganui River. This will take the most organisation out of any transport option, as you generally need to book in a group. The bookings can also be affected by weather, as rainfall can increase the height of the river by several metres in just a few hours. I booked through Taumarunui Canoe Hire and started from the Whakahoro campsite, and canoed through to Wanganui over about 5 days. The 3-hour ferry ride from Wellington to Picton, the two main exit and entry points of the North and South Islands, needs to be booked to get across the Cook Strait, the body of water in between. A water taxi then needs to be booked from Picton to Ship Cove, in order to start from the beginning of the Queen Charlotte track. Both the Rakaia and Rangitata rivers in Canterbury are braided rivers and can be very dangerous to cross. The Te Araroa Trust strongly suggests to not cross these rivers, and instead try and hitchhike around them to the next trailhead. Lastly, the road from Queenstown to the Greenstone car park cannot be walked. You can hitchhike this section or organise transport through a tour company. I was lucky enough to have my parents visit me in a rental car and take me all the way to the next trailhead in classic Toyota Corolla fashion. This might sound like a lot of organisation, but in my experience it was not. For the most part, I simply turned up on the day to these transport options, or did a few minutes of Googling while in a nearby town if I thought I would have to book ahead. About 14% of Te Araroa is road walking, meaning walking on any sort of back road or main road in order to connect to the next section of trail. Most road walking is in the North Island. Make sure to walk on the right-hand side of the road, with the traffic coming towards you rather than coming from behind you. When rounding a corner, you should walk around the edge of it and also keep as far off the road as possible, and stay safe. You could hitchhike these sections of road instead of walking them. In general, my hitchhiking experiences on the trail were very pleasant. It is sometimes hard to get a ride, but once you do, there is almost always a wave of relief and gratification that is felt. Along the trail, you will find yourself either wanting or needing a rest day. It is completely normal to take rest days while on trail. I myself took approximately 3 weeks worth of rest days while hiking Te Araroa. Listen to your body and remember to slow down and enjoy each town you pass through. Hike your own hike. This means as it sounds. Hike the way you want to. It's as simple as that. You can often get caught up in all of the logistics, gear reviews, costs, and different experiences and sights to see while planning an adventure like this. It is best to remember your why, and what is leading you to step out of your door for something like this in the first place. Before I stepped foot on Te Araroa, I knew that I wanted to feel a sense of adventure and to challenge myself, both physically and mentally. I pushed hard some days, but also spent some days lazing around eating hummus and chips. It's a balance. When you finish Te Araroa, especially if you have hiked the entire 3,000 kilometers in one go, it can be an interesting transition back into your previous routine of daily life. And chances are you will have changed as a person, possibly developed new values, and in general may have a different perception of life and what you want out of it. I hope this guide has helped you in preparing and planning for your time on Te Araroa. To reiterate my statement from earlier on, All of this information is based on my own experiences and research, and I strongly suggest that you use the up-to-date resources available to you. Please find all relevant links in the description below. Thank you for watching, and happy trails.